Okay, hey, train plants every day. This is the General's Command Directive number 2, I guess is what we're going to call these. Sorry about the music in my last one there, my old man. He was listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan on blast, so, sorry. Um, Great song, don't get me wrong, I like it and everything, um, but again, I want to continue with some of my personal aspects here. I know I did a video a little while ago about anybody want a 40 an hour worker for free, because, like a lot of, I know I'm just trying to help and things like that with probation. He's like, we'll go volunteer to a lot of places. Well, it's one of those things, you got to be careful for where I'm positioned. Now, I don't get the statement wrong. I don't, anyways. About why you want to do something like that. There's a lot of things in this region I got to recheck up on as well. I wanted to add that into here because it does help. This helps somebody out there. This is kind of the directive that you might be dealing with equally to me, or you might have a better standard to want to do this. A lot of stuff on YouTube and vlogging is about attitude and perspective and just trying to stay positive as best you can because, hey, if you're melting down in systems like this, hey, not going to help if somebody ever does, or after the hire, still not going to help. But anyways, about volunteering, obviously there was a couple that, one for sure that stood out, which was a veterinarian clinic. That one, even though it's in Walton, it's not that far away. When you have to do it for free like that, it's one thing to do work for free, then have to drive to get there. With a veterinary clinic, I imagine still walking the dog, cleaning poop, and shaving dog with a pair of clippers, simple, crazy, stupid little stuff. Maybe working some paperwork and some desk stuff, but more than anything, just cleaning up poo, which is life. The shovel, get the bullshit, turn it into fertilizer somehow. But a system like that, it gives you, just for me personally, it would be something new for me. It would be one of those ones where, as a general, I can learn some new systems and forms about actual medicine and some basic observations about maybe I'd get lucky enough to watch them stitch something up or do some transition that over to medical files of a survival, medical, military, whatever. Because they're not that far off, honestly. You're gonna do a lot of the same procedures, quarantine, white room systems, which is managerial, which is the general command directive. But again, I don't want to jump too far down the rabbit hole yet with that kind of idea. But it is kind of a bitch when you have to volunteer to places that you've already worked, like a stone dock, for free. um, that's a heartbreaker. Um, but hey, if it opens up that window and you have option A and option B, and I don't get me wrong, it's a number theory for me. I understand the numbers well enough, and again, I don't really understand those numbers. It has something to do with probation, I guess. If you're on probation, you get locked back up. From what I hear, it's half that time, but you got 3 years. You gotta hit that perfect window about what starts to cut off and then starts to be longer than just sitting around anyways, inside. But that's not really the option I want to take. It's not exactly a pleasant place to learn. You don't have internet. You can't really take your journal that you've been working on. You have to do it through other ones and then have to reposition them back into it. And you don't have spell checker. You don't have YouTube. You don't have any books. You can't get any kind of thing. No internet in terms of getting a lot of that. A lot of your mail would be censored. Yes, I've heard people can't even get algebra, works and things like that, and it's just crazy. Kind of place that'll make you stupider, honestly. It's supposed to smarten you up, but it don't. You learn how to do drugs. That's all people talk about in there is their drugs or their case. And psychology. You got millions of case studies, but it's a very touchy subject. Sometimes people don't like that, and you can do it from the backlog, write all those notes, make observations, and do all that stuff. But you got to be really careful not to get into a fist fight. Attitudes can get out of control real fast. I'm just trying to help. They don't feed you great. Not supposed to be 5 star. You know, it's not a hotel. Bed sucks, all that kind of stuff. But you know, it is a magic number on the back end. You know, of what you're doing out here and having to volunteer for essentially slave labor. Now, and, hey, probation may watch this. Look, this is the reality. You can send me to mental health if you want to about this, but it's all about demeanor here and things that go along with it. Anything I have the freedom of speech to say, but there's a way, and you can and can't say things honestly by social liberal terms. All right, remember this is a general here you're dealing with, and it's hard to hire a general into labor. But around the region, you know, it's one of those things. I've been overqualified to a lot of places too. You know, maybe that's a lot of this. You know, it's hard to want to hire somebody that the only reason they're there is because probation's mandating them to be there. Now again, that's 3 years and piece numbers. I'll give you the numbers, but I'm not the one that they call when they ask for the references. You know, they call the bosses, which not necessarily always a good thing for me, anyways. Gotta burn bridges, man. You know, fuck you. um, hey, but that's the world we live in. It's indifferent to a lot of circumstances, and a lot of times you could have done it differently. It's indifferent to the matter, but sometimes you can do things right and walk away from a place and still catch shit. So it don't care. But it is what it is on that notation. So I wanted to bring up that volunteer aspect here. You know, it's not a bad option. You know, there are a few places, a mechanic shop that I'll volunteer to. You know, there's other ones that I haven't worked for. You know, Buffalo Dental, I've been trying to get in there for years, but they're always hiring somebody different. I mean, I'm fucking, you know, only 2.5 miles away from the place. I can run there in literally 18 minutes. I know, it's on my route running. Um, you know, that's the kind of a place that I wouldn't mind volunteering for. Obviously, I got all kinds of machinery, factory, you know, assembly, even Dremel systems and things like that. I've worked in places like that, so I'm not going to learn anything new about that, but it's a great way to get your foot in the door, get that first slot, you know, when they go to hire somebody, because they do need somebody. It does have that aspect of a little grimy when you're starting it like this, so I'm just going to note it. That's the kind of thing that'll push a slow performer out or put them over the edge to, and you got to play the game. You know, this is not the kind of, there are a lot of people that are unemployed right now. There is a lot of systems, again, when you only got one slot and, you know, that kind of level of unemployment on the back end, kind of a thing. This is a planet where organisms eat organisms every day. This is general talking to you. You know, you don't always have to slit throats to do this, but at the other side, you can't slit your own wrist because you don't. Especially when you got the fire under your ass about probation and things like that, taking consideration. You know, I can't care about your kids because you're somebody else. I can't. I'm sorry. Like, if I don't, they throw me back in jail. You know, you don't care about that apparently. So, hey, it's just an example, I guess. Anyways, so back to the command directive here. Again, this is as much labor as some of the hardest labor jobs I've ever done, throwing tread or just doing landscaping where you're taking a mountain of dirt with a shovel and just throwing it on the back of a truck, you know, all day. You know, this kind of work can absolutely be that difficult, whether it be enthusiasm to sit down and want to process stone, dirt, paperwork, you know, it really don't matter, you know. Form, follows, function, and technique, you know, and it can be a backbreaker sitting here writing this stuff out, generalizing it. Oh yeah, I had a good one here in terms of, you know, the SCP, Secure, Contain, and Protect, is basically a general's aspect, you know, about before you get into what's secure, OSHA, how it's contained to not blow up and protect everybody. It's S.T.E.M, science, technology, engineering. Before you get into the 0-1 mathematics of science, technology. Science is a technology. Technology is a science. They're both engineered. If you engineer science, it becomes a technology to managerial skills. It becomes this machine, a technology that helps managerial skills better analyze the process in double set engineering. The first three Planck equations, right? Seed, stem, swag. Seed is stem, turns into the plant, which turns into swag, which makes seeds and stems. But anyways, I do have a general's command directive here that I really like. Mine is basically, again, and you read this out like item number, SCP, McDonald's, business model, application, any job that is manager, maintenance, anything. And basically it's a prefix. You know, you're saying that this is a general, relative STEM general's resume, or the general command directive. When you make a resume, it's based in a command directive, a condensed, generalized version of what you want all resumes to look like. But for me, I use a prefix of generally, whether it's STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, or managerial, maintenance, labor. What's your prefix? Followed by the prefix, which is starting to break this down into whether it be a more condensed version. You don't necessarily need that, but it comes into the concept of what the next step is. The universal field theory, or the sorry, I skipped this page. The full work history, and whether you do that specifically as the job description you did, and you write it out, I come in, I clocked in, checked the machines, jumped on the tread line, or we jump on the gantry saws. This is starting to quantum mechanics, or special generals, a brief description, or a three-dimensional scale version, if you can do that on a resume instead of an application. Alright, it's quantum mechanics. Then you do what I do for mine. It helps you do resumes, but it becomes a very thick book if you don't specifically generalize it to a company, is invention patterns, small business platforms. And again, whether an invention turns into a small business platform, or you take a small business platform or given factory system and you re-engineer the positions to a very specific invention, they become a new process. This becomes a new invention again. Remember those three things I was talking about? 0 to 1 to 0, or 0, 1, 1 that equals 2. Kind of behavior of what things are working like. Missing number, the perfect SCP, as you read it, you're going to want to, you like the form, but it's not exactly conventional writing. You know, it's not Hemingway, it's not a mathematics formula that fits on this perfect thing. Again, algebra, they all zero it out. Science is the technology of taking everything and reducing it to nothing. Philosophy is taking nothing and reducing it to everything, or one of those. Psychology, managerial, how you better your own life. If you got a good life, you're going to be probably a great manager. Time scales, consistencies, calendar works. The command directive. In short, how you expect a command or on paper, command on paper to work, i.e. a model of your written command to ground actions without flaw. If you write something, it may not have every specific detail in it, but in a sense it may not have any flaws because of that. You expect some level of common sense to fill in some of those gaps. Just like when you're doing a piece of machinery work in quantum mechanics, the idea is that it could take you 1,000 million years about every number that we haven't in the universe achieved yet. And you can do that here on any job, but we generalize it. We generalize that sometimes with special points, special relativity, but it still becomes general, 0, 0, the specific job. You know, we're still got gaps inside of that thing. It's on a piece of paper. It's the person doing it that doesn't transition into why they should be a president because they know how to do that, or leading the UN. You know, right? That's kind of what's happening. The Military Joint Chief Dictionary of Terms, syndicate design. Again, that's a business model of a different form, but real generalized. What kind of syndicate, your patterns, generals, officers, kind of an idea. and the art of war. We'll get more into it later.